Okay, so lucky last, we've got Kennedy. He's from Science and Engineering, and he's going to talk about engineering asset management in Australian mining. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. 1, 2 testing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Kennedy. I'm just going to present my topic here, learning and development, and I'm going to relate it into the mining industry. But first of all, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the land which I'm standing. So I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today and pay my respects to the elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge this research I'm doing with my research supervisor, Dr. David Top from USQ, as well as special mention to Dr. Steve Padney, who is in the auditorium. He's my research supervisor here at Southern Cross University, and I've been working with him since the journey started 2 years ago. This paper I'm presenting today, it's a thesis, which is a baseline that I'm going to be using into my PhD research. So the topic, what we're discussing here, the introduction, is in the mining industry. It's been known with a lot of high costs in maintenance. Obviously, you know, mining, it involves a lot of high costs in maintenance, but at the same time, we want to have a look at if those costs can be mitigated in a way as the industry is now changing in terms of, you know, how the mines are declining at the moment. We're looking into sustainable energy. So as we are turning that corner, we want to have a look and see if we can reduce the cost of engineering, which you would see that maintenance is one of the huge costs in engineering. At the same time, I will introduce you to what we call KPIs, key performance indicators in mining. These are the key indicators we use for us to see productivity, profitability, reliability, safety, and sustainability. And in there, you will see that reliability is one of the key components that underpins all those other indicators in there. At the same time, the main goal of this research is to see if learning and development can be implemented in the mining industry to actually improve how we manage our assets. So loaders and trucks and, you know, infrastructure in general, it could be buildings or anything. So moving forward, the objectives, like I've said before, we are really investigating how learning and development can be used for effective engineering asset management. At the same time, we also need to have a look at the skilled workforce itself. If we have a skilled workforce, can their output in the industry actually help the reliability to be a bit much better? That way, it means we are not spending as much money repairing our assets because our workforce is well trained and it's a continuous process. At the same time, I'm also someone who is an academic person and I value the use of education. I also want to have a look and see whether academic knowledge and industry experience, if there is a relation between the two. What I learned, you know, when I did my degree and when I went into the industry, there was a bit of a very big difference in those two scenarios. So we want to use this research to see if there are any gaps in that area and what else can be done. I'm hoping to get solutions to improve asset maintenance and performance. At the same time, I want to see how I can utilize coaching, training, and skills development in the existing structures. I also want to talk about the background of the other underpinning information that's there in the research. So engineering asset management, if you're wondering what it is, this is a concept which came up in the last 10 to 15 years. It's basically talking about how we manage the whole assets, the financial aspect, the human resource aspect, the machine aspects of it. So we put it all together. We call it engineering asset management. And it's a concept where a lot of industries are now starting to find the importance of investing in people, importance of investing in skilled labor, because it's a critical component in industry. At the same time, we're also having a look at the tertiary industrial skills application. Like I've said before, when an apprentice trains at TAFE, are they applying that knowledge when they come back into the industry? So it's something that's been looked at, but not very much in detail. And doing this research, we're hoping to explore more about that. I would also love to have a look at this emerging issue that came up. So mining sector, it's been known with throwing a lot of money at its trades. So if we lose someone today, we'll advertise the role, we'll get another person tomorrow because the salaries are quite high. But with the coming of COVID-19, a lot of things changed. So a lot of people were forced to not travel and they found other alternative ways of supporting their families. Some started their own businesses, some found work in the local areas, and they could now see that flying in and out, of course, there is high money in there. Someone might actually prefer being closer to home and getting a little bit much less money, but they're closer to their families. So that has changed how mining used to be. So at the moment, there's a sector of mining that's actually struggling for skilled labor. You cannot just throw money at it anymore. There is competition going around. So COVID-19 has changed the labor market in mining. So what we've done is in the period of probably December and March this year, we were looking at a lot of literature, what's been studied before into this research. So we've done a quite intensive systematic literature review. Search strategy was tabulated with keywords, definition, and stretch strings were put in. What I learned through this process, this was my awakening moment in research, because I had to go in and book sessions with research librarians in order for me to really do a comprehensive literature review, because this area has not been researched quite well. It's still coming up in research, actually. So for this thesis that I'm working on, I was mainly looking at the main databases. So that's Scopus, Web of Science, and ProQuest, just to try and narrow down my thesis in order for me to meet my submission deadlines. At the same time, it will give me a good indication of what my base knowledge would be moving forward into my PhD. So we started with 628 articles, and then we used all those top of the line deduplicators, reduced it down to 609, went forward and also used EndNote to remove all some other duplications, and then a three-way systematic literature review was done on blind search on Rien, where I was working with my supervisors and going through those finally selected articles. So from 538 articles, we ended up with 16 articles in our final included list. So I then went forward and had a look at these articles. This is still ongoing work. So far, what I've come up with, there are these 4 themes. And as you can see from these themes, the major thing that's coming up is learning and development. What we are seeing is this program used to be there before. Monash, they used to run a program called the Monash MRE program. And that was specifically for people who are in the industry, working as managers, working as technicians, where they would really work remotely, they would study online, and specific courses that are tailor-made for the industry, for the mining industry. So, and it's something that really worked well. What we did find from papers that were collaborating with this is there's a direct interpretation between the students and the teacher and how the knowledge that they are actually delivering, because it's industry specific. Whereas when you're looking from a traditional way of education, it's very broad. But these courses which were being offered were very specific to the industry. And at that time, when that author done their survey, about 37% of students in that course were actually doing online learning in the mechanical engineering department, which was higher than any other, some of the other courses which were being done there. Another theme which also came up from the papers was coaching and training. And from this, we can see that coaching, it's a very big tool that's being used, or that can be used to support learning and also to enhance the levels of motivation among the participants. I'll give you an example. In the industry, you might have a graduate trainee who comes in straight from an academic point of view, and then you partner them up with someone who is industry experienced, and they are coaching that person all throughout the tenure of them being employed. And that's a very effective way of actually getting them up to speed and applying their knowledge in the industry. Knowledge transfer, this is one area that I quite really resonated with, because you can see that knowledge transfer between the academic and the SMEs, these authors that are in these papers, they could find out that it should be seamless. There shouldn't be a gap between what people learn at school and what's in the industry. But with knowledge transfer, if these two units are communicating, we can really bridge that gap. The fourth theme that came up is obviously engineering asset management. What I did find out from the papers was within the last 5 probably to 8 years, there's been a shift in the industry. So a lot of SMEs and even the big industry like BHP, Glencore, they are now realizing and investing more in engineering asset management through training people. So they are getting into the universities, they are getting involved in actually funding their managers, funding their graduate trainees to go and get further education and facilitating that transfer of knowledge. So that's something that wasn't there before, but it's starting to come up. So the couple of papers which are supporting that theory. Hypothesis. So we're looking at 4 main variables here. So my independent variable is knowledge transfer. So we can see that knowledge transfer, that's what I'm hoping it's going to actually make the engineering asset management effective or not. How we transfer that knowledge using the different factors which you're gonna see on the next slide. At the same time, the main thing that this whole research will be dependent on is engineering asset management. This is a big thing, but you will see why it's big. Moderator variables, there will be time frame. So obviously, when you are training people, it depends how long that training goes for. If you train people for a shorter period of time, you also expect maybe, it depends, how much effective they might be at work. So if you're exposing to them to, say, at least 1 day training every 2 weeks about a certain skill, it might change how, or maybe if you're going once every month or once every fortnight, it's actually, it depends how they grasp the information. At the same time, this aspect, it's like a mediator variable where it depends how much resources the industries are throwing at it. So how is the human resource involved in it? How is the management actually involved in these programs, in the coaching, in the training, in the recruitment process of these students and apprenticeships? So that will actually also affect the results of my research. So this is the conceptual map that I'm going to be working with. So I've got, my knowledge transfer there. I've got those 4 variables that will also affect engineering asset management with time frame and resources. And these are the other micro independent variables that actually also affect knowledge transfer. So we've got academic learning, which, like I said before, what the students are learning in an academics scenario. Workplace coaching, when they come to the industry, are we coaching people? How are we coaching them? At the same time, workplace training, these are scheduled trainings that might happen at workplace at given times which are set. At the same time, onboarding, it's another important aspect. So when we're actually recruiting, how are we recruiting? Is it site-based recruitment, or we're leaving that job to an external unit to say, we need 10 graduate trainees here, can you get us some? We're not being specific. So I've been involved in my company in this process, and I'm quite proud to say the current apprentices that are at my workplace, I actually went to the schools and done a sort of like a familiarization of the trades before they applied, and the results were so phenomenal. And when we're looking at engineering asset management, because I was saying it's a big area, you can also see that the dependent variables here are huge. I will not be able to go through them in detail. Some are very technical, some are not, but you can see I really like organizational culture there. I've worked with Dr. Yvonne Brunetto on this one, on another paper which I presented in another seminar here. You can see that the organization has its own culture, and that also affects how information flows, how you retain your workers, what happens at the end of the day. It's because of the culture. Quality control, maintenance costs, how much assets are critical at the company, what we are trying to look at. So all these, they affect the overall asset engineering management effectiveness. So I'm quite at this point looking at how can I structure my questions to do the survey for me to be able to answer and see how these relate to each other. So that's the point where I am so far. At the moment, I've submitted my ethics application and are waiting to kickstart this research, which I'm hoping to spring forward and move it forward into the next PhD research. In conclusion, this is the most important things that I'm really finding out. Learning and development is fast becoming relevant. As we can see that the industry is turning the corner, profits are not as much as huge as we used to think. There's a decline in these resources. We are looking at other resources, so we need to watch our costs. High-skilled workforce, how does it relate to improved asset reliability? And then also there is an opportunity for improving technical skills with coaching and training. So that's what I had for you guys. And thank you so much for staying to the last minute and being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. We look forward to having you back next year and talk about some of your results because that's cool, really cool. All right, do we have any questions?
Hi, Kennedy. You know who I am.
Yep.
For the benefit of
Don't give me the hard questions.
I'm Steve Pudney. I'm just trying to sit down. I'm with Summerhouse University Faculty of Science and Engineering. Kennedy is actually doing a postgraduate course at another university currently, and he's looking to move into doing a PhD next year. Just by way of explanation. Kennedy, I really love your enthusiasm. I really love your presentation style. It's the first time I've seen anything Kennedy has presented, even though we've known each other for 2 years. What I want to ask you is, because I really saw the elevation of passion when you started to talk about your apprentices and the onboarding of the apprentices and how they're going. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And is there anything that any data that you may be able to collect from your apprentices? I'll hand it over to you.
Certainly, I'll share you a quick story. We trained an apprenticeship for 4 years, and while I was there, that was very instrumental. As a top level manager, I work as a reliability engineer. I'm quite involved with students. And at the end of their tenure, the 4 years, we sat down and we assessed them. And then we had 3, we had positions for 2. And then we said to one fella in our discussion as management, we are not going to take this guy. And the reason, the consensus there was because they are not good enough. And I didn't feel right saying they are not good enough. It's like we were pushing the responsibility to the student to say, you were not good enough. So I went back to my supervisors and I said, were we good enough as an organization in training this guy? Because I think it's a 2-part way. Most companies, it's mostly they just need the labor, but they are not training the people. So I'm very passionate about this, like what you said. And I really think from the conversations I've had with the apprentices at work in other areas, and that's the consensus. They feel like industry, they want them for the labor. They are not really worried about training a job-specific person and valuing that training, retaining that labor after the 4 years is gone. It's not good enough for me to recruit 8 people and let them go. Why did we spend so much money training them? So that's the answer there.
Hello, I wanted to say thank you for your presentation. And I felt like it was really set out really well.
Thank you.
And you explained it really well, and yeah, that engagement with the students. My question is, why have you chosen to study this, like the mining industry, and how does that fit in with our country's move toward renewable energies and training younger people for moving into that generation?
So the first passion, I think I've explained a little bit. It's because I come from the same pathway. You take a student, you go with them for 4 years. They want also to gain something along the way. And this is something that industry hasn't prioritized. They prioritize profits. They're not really worried how much skill you have. Of course, they value it in terms of money, but you need to be able to leave a company as a graduate trainee after 2 years and be employable. There's no point being there for 2 years when after that 2 years you've gained nothing. So that's one reason why I'm passionate about it. The other reason is this also can be used with the industry profit-wise. In this next phase that we are going, we all know that a lot of coal mines are closing down at the moment. So when we are forecasting, the mine life, we might not have 10 years anymore. We're looking at 5 years. So we cannot throw a lot of money into these programs or into these things when we know in 5 years' time, there's not going to be any ore. So that's why it's important for us to keep the people who are there and to also minimize how much we are spending in recruitment, because there is no more bigger mine lives coming in. That can be debatable. Maybe some might think, yep, it's still there, but it's quite important for now for industry to reinvest in people to give them a future after mining. That's all.
Good answer. Good answer. Well, thank you so much.